Okay, good morning, everybody. I want to continue with this um, series of broadcasts that we've started to do in English, trying to disseminate ideas that we believe that are very critical for our day and age. As you know, our society is coming to a crisis, a very serious crisis that might be one of the biggest challenges humanity has ever faced in history. That is that our technology is advancing in staggering pace and completely changing our economical and social conventions. Things that we have believed and were laid down as the foundations of the modern society are starting to, I don't want to collapse, but to change radically in terms of the way that we view them based on what is now possible. And by this we mean the value of work. Okay, we have believed that human beings are measured by their productivity, by how much that they can produce and sort of contribute to society by doing things that that if they will not do, then society will not be able to function. And today our technology has developed into such a level that this is no longer true. Okay, many occupations that in the past were mandatory for the existence of society, and we thought that would be completely irreplaceable. I'm not talking just about farmers or about factory workers or about truck drivers or whatever. We're talking about teachers, academics, musicians, lawyers, surgeons, whatever. We now have tremendous technologies that is capable of doing all of these things as good, if not better, than humans, and that is just the beginning of it. So what will be? What are people planning to do? Are they planning to fight each other for the last few positions and jobs that will remain? 10,000 people will compete on one job in data science. What is the plan? On one position in, I don't know, whatever will remain from the universities. What is the plan of all of this? And in order to understand this, we need to understand or reconsider the meaning of our economical systems. Now the problem is that it is not properly done. And we are coming to a very, very dangerous situation in which if we will not find solutions soon to this problem, we are going to be in a very big problem, all of us, because the economy will simply collapse. Now the question is, if there's no solutions at all, if there's do we need to reinvent the wheel? Do we need to make something completely out of the ordinary that has never been thought about before? The answer that I want to show you is no. We have a treasure of human thought dedicated exactly for this purpose. Only that a lot of thinkers and philosophers and social thinkers that anticipated the crisis that we are coming towards were ahead of their time. Humanity, society was not yet ready to understand the value of these concepts. Mind you, that we are now in the 21st century. The crises and challenges that we are facing now, and these are existential crises. This is not just a philosophical game. We are talking here about the fate of humanity as a whole, of all milliards of people that living on the face of planet Earth today. This is quite a serious question, right? So if you pay attention, the ideological, economical, and social questions that we are facing in the 21st century are actually radically opposite to the challenges faced in the 20th century, in the 20th century. Why? Because in the 20th century, the clashes between the economical powers were exactly about the opposite values. The value of work. Okay, the value of work. The whole concept of work was the main economical confrontation between the big forces of the 20th century. And there, the workers were the most important thing. We didn't have computers, we did not have AI, we did not have this kind of technology, so the workers were in the focus. And of course it split into the big struggle that shaped the 20th century. One of the main factors that shaped the 20th century was the struggle between the two big camps of capitalism on the one hand and communism on the other hand. But both of them were about how do we view the workers, the status of the workers. Our challenge is completely opposite. And therefore the dogmas of the 20th century are actually obsolete for the 21st. Because our proletariat today, the main focus of the, communists and socialists and capitalists and so on, is exactly the problem that it's getting extinct, replaced by computers. So if we will try to apply, whether it be capitalism or socialism, and of course none of them were, God forbid communism has shown its problems, right, in the 20th century. It will not work because it's obsolete, it's dated. The concepts themselves are dated. So we need to look at maybe the things that were ahead of their time, ideas that were so ahead of their time that were not even on the table back then. And maybe there we will find solutions to our problems. Because let's see what the forces to be without proper handling, if we will let empty people deal with this and rise their ideas and have their effect. Let's see where they are heading us. Okay, so let me show you two things here. Okay, so there's a post here in Twitter, in X, yeah. Bill Gates' underlying agenda of depopulating the world by 10 to 15% using vaccinations. Okay, the WHO finally had to admit that every one of Bill Gates' vaccines that was independently tested had sterility drugs in them. That's a claim by Robert F. Kennedy. Till not long ago, it was labeled. A conspiracy theorist, right? Today, he's in the American government. And it's not conspiracy theory because it says this by themselves. Okay, so let's see the plans of the forces to be for the fate of humanity. Let's hear this a bit.
Can't we just, cut it in half or a quarter? And the answer is that until we get near to zero, the temperature will continue to rise. And so that's a big challenge. It's very different than saying, we're a 12-foot high truck trying to get under a 10-foot bridge and we can just sort of squeeze under. This is something that has to get to zero.
So these psychopaths are talking about depopulating the world because there's too many people. Okay? So it's so crazy. It's just insane. And people are listening to this and like, oh, okay, fine. Bill Gates wants to depopulate the world. And he's saying this. It's not conspiracy theory. He's literally saying it. Okay? In his eyes, people are useless and they need to be depopulated. It's insane, yeah?
Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 26 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out.
Okay, so in order, the main goal of this sect is to reduce CO2 levels. And the more people there are, the more CO2 levels, and the more services a person receives is also contributing to the CO2. So less people, less wealth for these people, the less the better, yeah? That's the plan.
Per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero.
Down to zero.
Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
So depopulating the society is a goal in the eyes of these people, because in their eyes, they're just CO2 factories, right? That's what all humanity is.
New vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
How exactly are vaccines responsible for depopulating the society? I mean, vaccines are supposed to protect people's health, right? Healthier people, more people, less people die, right? So how do vaccines depopulate this population? Very interesting. Anyway, let's see another exemplar. Okay, Yuval Noah Harari.
In the book, if I understand
another distorted human being. Okay, a disgrace for my country, right? Let's see what he is saying.
But you argue that actually the amazing breakthrough that we are experiencing right now not only will potentially make our life better, but they will create, and I quote you, new classes and new class struggles, just as the Industrial Revolution did. Can you elaborate for us?
Yes, in the Industrial Revolution, we saw the creation of a new class of the urban proletariat, and much of the political and social history of the last 200 years involved what to do with this class and the new problems and opportunities. Now, we see the creation of a new massive class of useless people. As computers become better and better in more and more fields, there is a distinct possibility that computers will outperform us in most tasks and will make humans redundant. And then the big political and economic question of the 21st century will be, what do we need humans for? Or at least, what do we need so many humans for?
Okay, this is of course demonic, dangerous,
I mean, in the previous
distorted ideas. Okay, distorted ideas. We need to understand what will happen to humanity if this kind of little minds, really retarded minds, will be the ones administering the process. Okay, and this is of course, first of all, highly distorted individuals, and second of all, very ignorant, very, very uneducated people. They present themselves as Bill Gates, as Professor Yuval Noah Harari or whatever. But these are, at the end of the day, simple-minded people, simpletons. These are very, very unintelligent people. And these are the people crowned as the speakers for humanity here in this case. It's just simply horrible. Let's listen a bit more to this idiocy.
In history, if you were on the wrong side of history, if you didn't understand what was happening and you lost the competition, then you ended up as some kind of serf or manual laborer being exploited by the people who understand and have the power. Now, if you're left behind, you're facing something far worse, which is to be completely irrelevant. They won't even need you as a serf or as a slave.
What to do with them, and how will they find some sense of meaning in life when they are basically meaningless, worthless? My best guess at present is a combination of drugs and computer games as a solution for more. It's already happening. In other different titles, different headings, you see more and more people spending more and more time or solving their inner problems with drugs and computer games.
Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our
Okay, I think
class.
that's enough. We understand the point here. So let's see what intelligent people had to say about these matters. Okay, people that really had solutions, and not such false prophets like Yuval Noah Harari. And I want to show you things that were way ahead of their time back then, and they become highly relevant. And it's about time to start listening beyond the labels of, I don't know, lefty, anarchist propaganda and so on, and really listen to what these people had to say. Now, one of them, very interesting philosopher, is Piotr Kropotkin. Okay, Piotr Kropotkin. And he was one of the fundamental anarchist thinkers. Now, I'm not advancing for any kind of social order or whatever, just to listen to ideas. Okay, I'm not advancing lefty anarchist socialism of any kind. A lot of the things that also Kropotkin said were not always correct, sometimes dangerous, sometimes dated. Okay, some of his books and the economical understandings are dated, they are not unapplicable as they are. But some of the ideas are extremely beautiful, and some of them extremely relevant, critical. Okay, so let's see a bit in Wikipedia about Kropotkin. Okay, so just a few minutes. Let's see about him. Very, very interesting. And again, I'm not saying that now, I don't know, take Kropotkin's writings and read them cover to cover and apply them, and this will be the solution for humanity. Absolutely not. But some of the things that he says are extremely relevant, extremely interesting, and should be listened with care. Okay, because our generation came to a point that we can start appreciating some of these ideas and not just labeling them as, I don't know, insane anarchist socialism or whatever. Piotr Alexeyevich Kropotkin was born in 9th December 1842 and died at 8th of February 1921. Actually, it is his, as we say in Hebrew, this is his Yahrzeit. It's exactly, he died around 104 years ago. Yeah, but on 8th of February. Was a Russian anarchist and geographer known as a proponent of anarchist communism. And again, we're not advancing communism in no way. Don't stand on your rear feet and say that this is communist propaganda. Not at all. Okay. Born into an aristocratic land-owning family, Kropotkin attended page groups and later served as an officer in Siberia. Anyway, anyone that wants to read, you can read about his biography. Very interesting, yes. And of course, it did lead to problems, the anarchist movement, but I want to see some of the ideas that are very relevant for us today. So yeah, one of these important books, the ones that I will want to discuss today, is The Conquest of Bread. Another important book is Mutual Aid or Mutual Guarantee, a Factor in Evolution. Yeah, he advocated that society must introduce the concept of mutual aid as a part of our human evolution in economy. Okay? And what I want to show you is something really ahead of his time in the introduction to The Conquest of Bread. Oh, this is not this. This was Bach. Okay. So he wrote this thing in the 19th century or beginning of 20th century, whatever. And look how it resonates today, what he has to say. Take indeed a civilized country. I'm reading from the introduction of Conquest of Bread. By the way, this website, I should mention, is the Anarchist Library. Okay, so let's give credit. Where was it now? Just a moment. Take, for instance, Take indeed the civilized country. The forests which once covered it have been cleared. The marshes drained, the climate improved. It has been made habitable. So you see, the questions that he wants to lead us to ask now is, okay, we have AI. AI can replace all of us. AI can, I don't know, it can explain me calculus. It can explain me how to play Bach. It can play Bach for me. It can write me a sonata from Shakespeare. It can do anything you will ask it to do, it will do. It can make, I don't know, brain surgery. Okay, it can replace all of us. But who made it? To who does it belong? What created it? This is the question. How did it materialize to be? Who are the owners of AI? Who are the owners of this technology? Is it Bill Gates? Is it Elon Musk? Is it OpenAI? Is it China? Who owns all of this? And we must ask this question. We must understand it deeply, intently understand it. Each and every human being must understand how we should view this magic. How should we view this miracle? And if we will continue to listen to idiots like Yuval Noah Harari and let them lead the way on saying that now people have become useless and all of these things, we will drag ourselves to hell. Humanity as a whole will drag itself to hell. Is it not better to listen to much better points of view on this thing? Let's see. Let's see what Kropotkin has to say about this. Who is the owner of this technology? And for what purpose does it serve? Take indeed a civilized country. The forests which once covered it have been cleared. The marshes drained, the climate improved. It has been made habitable. The soil, which bore formerly only a coarse vegetation, is covered today with rich harvests. The rock walls in the valleys are laid out in terraces and covered with vines bearing golden fruit. The wild plants which yielded not but acrid berries or uneatable roots have been transformed by generations of culture into succulent vegetables, or trees covered with delicious fruits. Thousands of highways and railroads furrowed the earth and pierced the mountains. The shriek of the engine is heard in the wild gorge of the Alps, the Caucasus, and the Himalayas. The rivers have been made navigable, the coasts carefully surveyed, are easy to access. Artificial harbors laboriously dug out and protected against the fury of the sea afford shelter to the ships. Deep shafts have been sunk in the rocks. Labyrinths of underground galleries have been dug out where coal may be raised or minerals extracted. At the crossing of the highways, great cities have sprung up, and within their borders all the treasures of industry, science, and art have been accumulated. So he already asks in the 20th century, who has built all of this? Each and every human being is born into this world after all this has been done. So who is the owner of all of this? Of all this technology? And this he asks in the 19th century. So now society comes to each and every human being and tells him, you're now born, you're useless. We don't need you, you're a slave, you're a serf. You need to work for us. But that's because we view each and every human being as an atom. As an atom, an individual that is not part of the big family of humanity. Okay? Whole generations that lived and died in misery. So how will such an individual human accumulate command over all of this, all the wealth of the previous generations? We're not competing against the elite. We're not competing anymore against, I don't know, the Rothschilds or the wealth owners. Humanity has created a completely meaningless challenge to every human being that is born into this world, to compete against all of the previous generations and what they have already left for us. It's insane. Whole generations that lived and died in misery, oppressed and ill-treated by their masters and worn out by toil, have handed on this immense inheritance to our century. We are actually being crushed down by the inheritance humanity has inherited to us. Meaning all this, and especially today in the 21st century, all of the things that we think that we will become useless is because we have inherited all of this from the previous generations. How was AI created? How was this artificial intelligence created? It was created by infusing into it, by feeding into it the work of all humanity for the last 6,000 years. 6 billion years. How does AI know, artificial intelligence know how to, I don't know, solve a quadratic equation? Or how to speak in English and in Hebrew and in German and in all these languages? Because it learned it. From who? From you it learned. All this data that has been put into it is from the human toil of all the generations of the past. It's yours. You earned it. And now retards like Yuval Noah Harari and Bill Gates are trying to take it away from you. All the mathematics and the philosophy and the engineering and the medicine and whatever that the AI knows, it knows from you. It's yours. You gave it to it. It's your inheritance. It's like somebody that, I don't know, it's like somebody that was a completely poor person. He planned that in all of his work he will need to work, I don't know, for $1 in a month. Suddenly he inherits billions of dollars. He inherits it. Figures out that he has an inheritance. It's all for free. And now he will say, oh, I became useless. Now I won't need to work in the coal mine for all my life. I can just enjoy my inheritance. What will I do in my life? Oh, you understand the retardation of Yuval Noah Harari? Now it's all accessible. It's all easy. So what will we do? We became useless. Humanity needs a huge paradigm shift. Paradigm shift. We need to understand for what are we working at all? What was the purpose of all this work? Did we came to this world to work and toil and suffer and die and earn pennies for it? Or did we came to enjoy from what we have? And humanity is currently completely tied down, chained to false conceptions of slavery that psychologically we're not capable to understand, that we came to a point that we can actually enjoy from the inheritance that we ourselves inherited to ourselves. humanity as a whole, if we look at humanity as a whole, we have came to a historical time in which we can actually enjoy this inheritance. The whole toil and suffer of all of humanity has now been channeled into something that can actually release us from these chains. But we're so confined to it that now that it comes, oh my, the end of the world has came. Apocalypse is coming. No more suffering and work. And this is the most dangerous thing of all. You see, simpletons like this idiot, like Yuval Noah Harari, is preaching. People now became useless. But who said that this was the role of humanity to begin with, to suffer like this, like we've suffered, to build all of this to begin with? You see, the artificial intelligence is the creation of the accumulation of all of humanity throughout all of history. It's yours. And it is the most dangerous thing in humanity, in the history of humanity, if we will not understand this on time. That it does not belong to some, secluded elite. Retards like Bill Gates and I don't know who else. Yuval Noah Harari and their friends. It's the work of the whole generations who authorized to give and feed AI with all of this knowledge. I mean, it does not need authorization, it just happened. We cannot undo it, right? And we shouldn't undo it. But for instance, shouldn't there be a concept of copyright, for instance? What happened to that? For thousands of years, millions of men have labored to clear the forests, to drain the marshes, and to open up highways by land and water. Every rod of soil we cultivate in Europe has been watered by the sweat of several races of men. Of several races of men. This thing is beyond race, it's beyond gender, it's beyond religion, it's beyond anything. It belongs to all of humanity. Every acre has its story of enforced labor, of slavery, of intolerable toil, of the people's sufferings. Every mile of railway, every yard of tunnel has received its share of human blood. Blood, suffering, slavery, whatever. All these things of many races that have suffered all throughout of history. To create these moments that we have reached, this historical moment. The shafts of the mine still bear on the rocky walls the marks made by the pick of the workmen who toiled to excavate them. The space between each prop in the underground galleries might be marked as a miner's grave. And who can tell what each of these graves has cost, in tears, in privations, in unspeakable wretchedness, to the family who depended on the scanty wage of the worker cut off in his prime by fire dump, rockfall, or flood. It's the accumulation of all of human suffering and work. And then, what? A bunch of people can come and say, this is ours, you now need to pay us so that we would let you live and enjoy from this? Really? Who made them? Who made Bill Gates boss? Who made Yuval Noah Harari boss? Who made them? Who appointed these people? It's yours. But we need to understand for which purpose this exists now. The most important things that we need to discover now, we don't need to discover any more technology. Any more technology and we're gone. We don't need more technology. What we need is social technology. We need a new social science. And the key word that we need to discover now is mutual guarantee. We need to stop thinking like human atoms, that each person is for himself. And we need to start thinking of humanity as a whole, of mutual guarantee, of putting end to suffering, of putting end to this toil of blood and sweat and tears and so on. Because we now have the means to do that. And instead of using it for its purpose, we are thinking about what will happen with all the useless people. It's freaking insane. And the only place where you can articulate these ideas in the I don't know, in the underground of YouTube channels, because the academy is blocking this discussion, and the World Economic Forums, whatever, are blocking these discussions, because they don't want this paradigm shift. It's too much for them to handle. But I believe that humanity has the power to unite in spite of this institutionalized blockade. And it must do so. It must. Because this is an existential threat if things will remain the way they are. The cities bound together by railroads and waterways are organisms which have lived through centuries. Dig beneath them and you find one above another the foundations of streets, of houses, of theaters, of public buildings. Search into their history and you will see how the civilization of the town, its industry, its special characteristics have slowly grown and ripened through the cooperations of generations of its inhabitants before it could become what it is today. So we are talking about the fact that we, as individual people, as individual human beings, okay, we live 120 years, but we partake in the building of social organisms, if you will, that are much older than that. If you live in a city, I don't know, you live in New York, you live in Paris, you live in London, you live in Jerusalem, wherever you live, I don't know, Gaza, wherever, Ramallah. You live in, I don't know, Addis Ababa. It doesn't matter where you live. These are organisms. These are things that are much older than individual people. These are things that we inherited along the years. Humanity has inherited, and especially systems like AI. You see that these are organisms. These are not some angels like Elon Musk said, we are invoking demons or whatever. These are the accumulation of human thought, of human work, of human toil. It's ours. And it should serve humanity, not the other way around. We shouldn't become slaves to our own technology. We shouldn't become slaves to our own inheritance. It should serve us. But in order for this to do so, we need to change paradigm, the way that we think about society, about the purpose of work, about the purpose of humanity, about the purpose of life, and so on. Which has been created by the accumulated labor of the millions of workers, now dead and buried, is only maintained by the very presence of labor of legions of men who now inhabit that special corner of the globe. So, the inheritance that we received from the previous generation is exactly that. It's an inheritance. It's enabled by the work of billions of people of the past. Not one person. We're not competing against other one person individual. We are dealing with the sustaining of the accumulated work of the whole of humanity. It's a global thing. It's not an individual thing, like we are accustomed to think about it in this way. Mutual thing. Each of the atoms composing what we call the wealth of nations owes its value to the fact that it is part of the great whole. What would a London dockyard or a great Paris warehouse be if they were not situated in these great centers of international commerce? So a person can say, okay, I don't mind for all this socialist bullshit. You, all these millions of useless people, like Yuval Noah Harari says, you can go screw yourselves, right? I don't need you. I have my own business, I have millions of dollars, and I'm not part of this. I'm by my own. I'm self-sustained. I don't need you guys. Okay? Is it true? Is it true? Is there really one person that can say that he is self-sustained? Is there one person that can say that he is self-sustained? Is Bill Gates self-sustained? Let's say that he depopulates the world. What did Bill Gates make his fortune from? He made his fortune from exactly from this globalist economy that enabled him to sell Windows Microsoft to every computer on the face of the world. If there were any less people in the world, Bill Gates would not have been as rich, right? The exact thing that enabled Bill Gates to become so rich is the fact that there is so many people. And each one of these people requires services that he now wants to depopulate. You understand the retardation? So even if a person, I don't know, in our day and age, I don't know, has a huge business, a big business, it's still an atom compared to the big picture. It depends on so many other things, on the prosperity of so many other things. So any person that will want to sabotage the prosperity of the whole is literally cutting off the branch on which he sits. We are so mutually intertwined that the only way for the success of a few is the success of the many. That's why everything depends now on mutual guarantee. Any person that thinks that, oh, I can depopulate the world, I don't need all these people, and thinks that he will somehow survive this, a complete idiot. What would become of our mines, our factories, our workshops, and our railways without the immense quantities of merchandise transported every day by sea and land? Millions of human beings have labored to create this civilization on which we pride ourselves today. Other millions scattered through the globe labor to maintain it. Without them, nothing could be left in 50 years but ruins. Okay? This is ours. Artificial intelligence is ours. It does not come to replace us. It's built by the whole human toil of humanity. There is not even a thought or an invention which is not common property, born of the past and the present. Thousands of inventors, known and unknown, who have died in poverty, have cooperated in the invention of each of these machines which embody the genius of man. It is by definition common property, but just the fact that it is common property does not mean that it needs to threaten the well-being and livelihood of humanity. We are now just realizing what the anarchists have been saying 150 years ago, 100 years ago, because it was so ahead of its time. So for 100 years, we could try to bury this underground and say, oh, it's private. All this genius is a private thing. But now we are forced to understand this kind of message. We must understand the idea of mutual guarantee. Must. It becomes an existential threat not to understand this. As a whole, as an ideological perception of the whole of humanity. Because otherwise we will get extinct, really extinct. And it's the most retarded thing to be extinct because to toil for so many centuries in order to create something like this that would finally be able to release us from all this suffering and then be threatened by it. Don't you find it retarded? I find it retarded. Thousands of writers, of poets, of scholars have labored to increase knowledge, to dissipate error, and to create that atmosphere of scientific thought, without which the marvels of our century could never have appeared. We are used to see singular geniuses. I don't know. I can do with Newton, I don't need all the rest. Or an Einstein. Or some singular, I don't know, genius like Bach. Why do I need all these other musicians playing? Why do I need all these other scientists that, I don't know, will never be famous? I just need the geniuses. Doesn't work like that. Science as we know it is the accumulated labor of the genius of all of humanity, not just individuals. Music the same, literature the same. We are viewing things in a very simplistic manner. And for sure, artificial intelligence is not the property of, I don't know, OpenAI, or of, I don't know, some Chinese startup. Because they fed it with the work of the whole of humanity. Did all of humanity give its consent to this without getting a benefit from it? Let's continue. And these thousands of philosophers, of poets, of scholars, of inventors have themselves been supported by the labor of past centuries. Newton for sure needed to eat, right? He needed somewhere to live. He needed clothing. Einstein also. So you see, 100 years ago, probably people could not understand the implication of what is written here. But today, in the 21st century, can we turn our shoulders away from this? They have been upheld and nourished through life, both physically and mentally, by legions of workers and craftsmen of all sorts. They have drawn their motive force from the environment. The genius of a Sedgwick, a Mayer, a Grove has certainly done more to launch industry in new directions than all the capitalists in the world. But men of genius are themselves the children of industry as well as of science. Not until thousands of steam engines had been working for years before all eyes, constantly transforming it into dynamic force, and this force into sound, light, and electricity, could the insight of genius proclaim the mechanical origin and the unity of the physical forces. And if we, the children of the 19th century, have at last grasped this idea, if we know how to apply it, it is again because daily experience has prepared the way. So, in our day and age, in the 21st century, even more so, we are so proud of developing these tools. And we give no credit to the past. To the fact that we have uploaded all of our scientific and philosophical and intellectual effort, accumulated effort, to our technology. But who has developed this? Did AI develop it? Or did all of humanity develop it? The thinkers of the 18th century saw and declared it, but the idea remained undeveloped because the 18th century had not grown up like ours, side by side with the steam engine. Imagine the decades that might have passed while we remained in ignorance of this law, which has revolutionized modern industry. Had Watt not found at Soho skilled workmen to embody his ideas in metal, bringing all the parts of his engine to perfection, so that steam, pent in a complete mechanism, and rendered more docile than a horse, more manageable than water, became at last the very soul of modern industry. In his age, 19th century, the steam engine was the cutting-edge technology. In our age, it's artificial intelligence. but it should not be viewed as something that is an individual development. It is the result of the toil of humanity as a whole, and therefore needs to serve humanity as a whole. Every machine has had the same history, a long record of sleepless nights and poverty, of disillusions and of joys, of partial improvements discovered by several generations of nameless workers, who have added to their original invention those little nothings, without which the most fertile idea would remain fruitless. More than that, every new invention is a synthesis, the result of innumerable inventions which have preceded it in the vast field of mechanics and industry, and even more so, artificial intelligence. So the biggest discovery that our generation needs is not more science, and not more technology, and not more scientific gadgets. What we need to rediscover is a new social science, a new that exists, but we need to uncover it, and fast. That's the most important discovery that humanity needs to discover on a global level. Not listen to idiots like Yuval Noah Harari and Bill Gates. We need to discover the most powerful resource that humanity has in the world and has ever been. And that is called mutual guarantee. With mutual guarantee and the technologies that we currently have, we can feed the whole of humanity easily, without so much effort like past generations. But we must discover this from within ourselves as a value, as an ideology, as an ideological foundation for the 21st century, because we can now afford it to ourselves. Past generations could not afford to themselves to discuss these subjects. But now it's not just that we can afford it to ourselves. We must do it. Existentially must do it. If we will not do it, we will get extinct. It's not just afford, we must, it's a necessity. Science and industry, knowledge and application, discovery and practical realization leading to new discoveries, cunning of brain and of hand, toil of mind and muscle, all work together. Each discovery, each advance, each increase in the sum of human riches owes its being to the physical and mental travel of the past and the present. By what right, then, can anyone, whatever appropriate the least morsel of this immense whole, and say, this is mine, not yours? And this is a very, very serious question. By what right can any individual or group or nation or race or whatever come and say, this is mine and not yours? Especially about this technology. If any kind of sect or political sect or whatever, at this moment in day of an age, will try to say, this is mine and not yours, this is an invitation for overall war of all against all. The choice between complete utopia and complete disaster has never been so clear. If humanity will work in mutual guarantee, we can offer prosperity for all. But if we would think that some people would be labeled useless in view of the ability to offer prosperity to all, nobody will sit quiet in this. I don't understand what Yuval Noah Harari thinks and Bill Gates think. That the whole population will sit down and just die because they became useless? That's not what history teaches us. Okay, so this is Kropotkin. I think, and again, the solutions that he suggests further in the book, some of them are very dated. Okay, it's not going to work like that. Some of this is, of course, relevant, yeah, but some of it is really dated. But we must open the books. We must understand that there has been human thought in these directions that was way ahead of its time, and today is no longer luxury. It's a necessity to start understanding a new social science. Of course, this was the role of the universities, and maybe they will still live up to it. But for the last few years, they completely neglected any kind of proper discussions about this subject, just making more troubles and more division amongst people, this gender or just that gender and this race and this colonialism and so on, instead of seeing the big picture. I want to share with you another thing along these lines. And you know, in our channel, a lot of the broadcasts are in Hebrew. We advocate for a reading in the teachings of another very deep thinker. This is Baal HaSulam. And he also was way ahead of his time. He wrote around 80 years ago, also about social issues of this sort. Again, it's also sometimes his social writings are labeled, I don't know, socialistic, anarchistic, and so on, but it is a mislabeling. It's much, much, much deeper than that. And he also foresaw this kind of social problems that we are facing today. And he said also similar things. So I would just want to write you from his social writings. He wrote around 80 years ago, "Our planet Earth is rich enough to finance all of us. And what use for us is the tragic war of life that destroys us, our lives from generations and generations." Let's understand this. Let's understand that we can use the toil and the hard work of humanity as a whole to offer prosperity for all. Anyway, Baal HaSulam had very similar messages on this subject. I really hope that we will be able to expand on this. And again, you know, you probably see from the pictures that he has a very religious, orthodox kind of physical appearance. But don't let this mislead you. His philosophy, his thinking on social matters is universal. Is directed for a universal message. A universal message which is very similar to what we've just read, of mutual guarantee, of the need for mutual guarantee for cooperation within all of humanity, as for the sake of the equal rights of all humanity. And this is a critical message for our generations. Hopefully, we will be able to disseminate more on this matter. And of course, we're not the only ones. You can find much about this in English nowadays, if you will read about it. But I really hope that we will be able to expand about it on this subject of these social writings. And again, we really advocate, you see, we definitely do not say that there is any kind of sort of dogma or any kind of sort of finished product on this matter. It's really a new science that we must discover. See, our previous broadcast was from Spinoza, from Kant, and at the end of the day, we advocate we need to open the books, we need to find a new science of social science, of how society needs to live in the 21st century, so that things will be for the good and not for a crisis. Okay, because we really, the crossroads has never been more dramatic and more polarized. If humanity will find this new way of thinking, we are capable of offering really something close to utopia, I don't know, relative to what previous generations thought possible. We are in the brink of utopia. If you would have came 100 years ago and you would have shown a human being the technology that we currently have in our hands, he would have told you we live in messianic times. Clearly. He would have said this is the even in terms of science fiction. 100 years ago, the most radical imagination would not have imagined something like what we have today. Look at the books of Jules Verne. Look at the science fiction of the past is our present. So A person from 100 years ago would have told you, you live close on the brink of utopia. But on the other hand, since our mindset is so chained by the conventions of generations of enslavement, we're not capable of taking advantage of this, and this is actually becoming a threat. So this ideological shift is mandatory, and the more people that will partake in it, disseminate it, look for it, search for it, try to uncover this new science, the better the world will be. So if you share this worldview, you find it interesting, you find it important, and I'm sure that you do, help disseminate, help furthering this message. Study by yourself, find books, try to see, try to talk to people, try to advance this forward, and hopefully we will succeed together. So have a good day.